in this video, I'm going to cover the most exciting topic you've ever learned about in the history of art, and that is copyright law. I'm just kidding, it is not that exciting. And if you want to dive really in depth, then you can spend 480 pages of your life reading it from the federal government of the United States. Before we begin, I want to give a couple disclaimers. So one, this is not legal advice, nor is it intended as legal advice. So if you are concerned about any legal matters, or someone has served you a cease and desist, or anything of that nature, please consult with a lawyer and do not reference this video for specific legal matters. My advice and opinions and not legal counsel. So please do not regard it as legal counsel. And secondly, this is only pertaining to United States copyright law. I am unaware, and nor do I have the time to research the copyright laws across the entire world and the various countries and their copyright laws. This is only pertaining to United States copyright law. And so I hope that this is helpful for you. And if you sell artwork, or you operate any sort of business within the United States, or sell to people within the United States, then this will apply to you. What I do know is that various countries around the world also operate under similar or the same copyright infrastructure as the United States. But if you want to be completely sure about the copyright laws, you'll have to look them up for your specific nation that you live in. So just to be clear, the reason why we're creating this video is because there's a lot of uncertainty and perhaps confusion surrounding the copyright laws, especially as it pertains to artists and using photographs from the internet or any other photographs from someone else that are not your own as a part of a source in creating your own original artwork. Just as another disclaimer, the copyright law is incredibly confusing, and there are a lot of discrepancies or contingencies within the copyright law, such as the entire topic of fair use. So that is mainly the concern. Just to be clear, as soon as an individual takes a picture of anything, they own the copyrights for that, no matter what, unless they explicitly sign away the rights of that image to another person, or they're working under a work for hire or a 1099 or some sort of similar situation where they sign away the rights to the copyright to the person that is hiring them for that specific job. That's why a lot of times, if you've ever worked with a family photographer or you've worked with any other photographer, then there are different pricing packages. You can have just, prints of the image, you can have digital download of the image for sharing on social media, or you can purchase the full entire rights to the image and the copyrights, which costs extra because as part of their business model, photographers should earn more when they sell the copyrights away to the buyer. So to simplify the entire discussion, the main question is, can you use a photo or part of a photo from another person within your own source if you translate that into a painting? And the answer is sometimes, or maybe. So unfortunately, there's no clear yes or no within the copyright law, and that is because of the fair use. So if you want to learn more and read more about this topic in depth, so you have the full entire understanding of all the different scenarios and situations in which you could be in trouble, then I have provided some links below this video to download the entire Title 17 copyright updated for the United States of America, and also a link to the specific fair use index on copyright.gov in their website, so you can read that. I suggest you start with the fair use, and I'm actually going to read you a passage from that is summarizing the fair use laws in 4 bullet points so that you can have a little bit more of an understanding of the fair use clause within copyright. So just to be clear, a fair use is when you use a portion or all of another person's copyrighted work within your own work. And so here are the 4 considerations that the government takes into play when there is a copyright violation. So, in concerning fair use. First, they look at the purpose and character of the use, including whether the use is of a commercial nature or is for nonprofit educational purposes. So that means that if you are making money from whatever item it is that you are using within someone else's copyright, what that means is if you are using another person's copyrighted materials in your own work and it is of a commercial nature, meaning you are selling it for profit, then that is taken into consideration whether it falls under the fair use category. And so what they stipulate, though, is that it doesn't mean that all nonprofit educational and non-commercial uses are fair, and it also likewise doesn't mean that all commercial uses are not fair. Instead, courts will balance the purpose and character of the use against the other factors listed below that I'm going to get into. Additionally, transformative uses are more likely to be considered fair. This is very important because you are technically transforming a photograph into a painting. So it says that transformative uses are those that add something new with further purpose or different character and do not substitute for the original use of the work. Now, this is incredibly important because what that means is if you take an image and you manipulate it in some fashion digitally and then transform it into another medium, then you are more likely to be falling under the fair use category. So this is very important information to you understand as an artist, because if you say, take an image, paint that exact image, and you didn't take the photograph yourself, you just took it from Pinterest or Google or a photographer's website, God forbid, and, and you just paint that image directly, then it would probably not fall under the fair use because you did not transform the image in some form or another. All right, on to number 2. The next consideration is the nature of the copyrighted work. This factor analyzes the degree to which the work that was used relates to the copyright's purpose of encouraging creative expression. Thus, using a more creative or imaginative work, such as a novel, movie, or song, is less likely to support a claim of fair use than a factual work, such as a technical article or news item. In addition, use of an unpublished work is less likely to be considered fair. Number 3. Amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole. Under this factor, courts look at both the quantity and quality of the copyrighted material that was used. If the use includes a large portion of the copyrighted work, fair use is less likely to be found. If the use employs only a small amount of copyrighted material, fair use is more likely. That being said, some courts have found use of an entire work to be fair under certain circumstances, and in other contexts, using even a small amount of copyrighted work was determined not to be fair because the selection was an important part or quote unquote the heart of the work. So this is where a lot of interpretation comes into factor. A photographer could argue that if you remove the background of the piece and use the focal point of their piece as the focal point of your piece, if you do not digitally or physically manipulate the image in some fashion or another, that you are using the heart of their piece as the heart of your piece, in which case it would be less likely to fall under the fair use clause. So to put it simply, when you are painting and creating sources, steal like an artist. If you haven't read the book yet, we're going to link to it below. You should read the book Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. And in the book, he talks a lot about stealing like an artist and not like a thief. And that means combining many different themes, subject matters, textures, colors, all these different elements of art into your artwork in order to create your own unique style rather than just stealing someone else's style or copying someone else's style and stealing that and claiming it as your own. So really this plays a lot into changing the images, and that is a very important factor in creating sources. So you definitely want to have your own unique spin on a source. You want to combine many different elements together. Potentially, if you do paint more simply or you have a more minimalist style and there's less abstraction to it, then you might want to consider taking your own images and photographing your own models or making up characters, or possibly, and this is controversial, using generative AI. You could even combine different features from different models from the internet together digitally to create your own person. I know, it's crazy. The last and final consideration of the fair use policy is the effect of the use upon the potential market for or value of the copyrighted work. So here, courts review whether and to what extent the unlicensed use harms the existing or future market of the copyright owner's original work. In assessing this factor, courts consider whether the use is hurting the current market for the original work, for example, by displacing sales of the original, and or whether the use could cause substantial harm if it were to become widespread. So what this means is if you essentially compete with the original creator, like let's say they're selling photographic prints and you are selling, prints of your artwork as well, and it is similar enough that it doesn't fall into the fair use category within the other considerations above, then you could be in copyright law violation. In summary, you do have to be careful, but I do want to qualify all of this with the idea that it really depends on how widespread your art goes. So let's just say if you sell something less than $10,000, then I believe you would be less vulnerable to a copyright infringement, because just from the perspective of the original copyright owner, they don't have much to gain by suing you or pursuing some sort of monetary reimbursement from you, especially if they're a small company or, an individual that is, a photographer or someone who just randomly posted online. They have to pay a lot in legal fees in order to even pursue you. So if you haven't made more than, a certain amount of money, then it's not even worth it for them to pursue you legally. Now, I'm not saying this to free up anyone to just violate copyright laws left and right, because the whole intent and purpose of the copyright law, as it explained in the fair use, is to protect creative expression while also fostering it at the same time. So I know that it can be really complicated and probably confusing, and maybe I hope this video helped you, but essentially the copyright law is there to promote creativity and also, to a huge extent, protect large corporations like Disney because they have lobbied on behalf of copyright law a lot. Anyways, that's another topic for discussion. So especially if you're going to be painting or recreating fan art of a prominent figure, then I would be careful to manipulate and transform the image as much as possible so that it is your own unique creation, and therefore you would not be subject to copyright infringement and you would fall under the fair use category. So if you want to read more about this topic, if you want to dive more into it, then you can click on the links below, read all about the fascinating copyright law. So in summary, just to wrap things up, and at the end of the day, it's all about being your own unique self as an artist and expressing your own unique voice. And of course, I think personally, it is fine to borrow from other creatives, but do so ethically and morally and lawfully by making sure to abide by these different copyright laws and to do so with the fair use in consideration. And it's all about the creative expression. So try to, as best as you possibly can, exhibit your own voice, demonstrate your own style, bring your own flair to the creative work that you're producing, and you'll probably be okay. But as you can tell from the copyright law, it's a little bit wishy-washy and there's a lot of room for interpretation, and that's how the lawyers like it, let's be honest. So protect yourself as best as possible by being creative, being the amazing artist that you are. So I hope this video was really helpful for you, and as you go through the mastery program, you'll continue to develop your own unique style and voice, and that'll help shield you a little bit from the copyright laws, but of course, remain ethical, remain lawful, and stay true to your own creative voice as you continue painting masterpieces throughout the mastery program and beyond.